Yeah, good evening, everybody. I welcome you to our taztalk tonight, which is also today Hansen's Asientalk. My name is Sven Hansen. I will be moderating our discussion on Myanmar called From Coup to Civil War. Especially a warm welcome to those watching from Myanmar or from neighboring Thailand. We have three panelists tonight, all originating from Myanmar. All are in exile now, and they left their country at different times. All three belong to the so-called Generation Z. In Myanmar, that generation has been very active protesting the coup, resisting, and it became known by its slogan, "You messed up with the wrong generation." Before we start our discussion, please let me make two announcements. One is about your participation, so you can raise questions to the discussants and send it via the chat function or as email taztalk@taz.de. I will raise your questions towards the end of the discussion, but to be honest, not too much, but you will have the chance. And the other announcement is, as you know, all our talks are for free, meaning you don't have to pay anything, we won't charge you. But as you also know, these talks are not free of any costs. So we not always have a sponsor, and therefore we think it is important to keep them free, but those who can afford, we ask kindly, please donate some money so that we can have more talks in the future. So on the bottom, you will soon see the link to taztalk. This is where you can put your donations. Now let me start with introducing our guests. We have Yadanar Win. She's a multimedia artist from Yangon. She's now living in Perpignan in southern France. And from April to October, she lived in Rottenburg, that is near Tübingen in the south of Germany. She had studied English and she joined the new Zero Art Space in Yangon in 2009. There she experimented with performances, videos, installations, and did all this from a young and feminist perspective. Later, she worked as an arts and cultural coordinator at the Goethe Institute in Yangon, and she participated in many exhibitions and exchanges in different countries, very impressive: Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Italy, the UK, Sweden, and Germany. Yadanar left Myanmar in April. Our other female guest is Nyein Chan May. She's a student of political science and sociology at the University of Würzburg, that is in Bavaria. She is studying there since autumn last year. She is a co-founder and elected board member of the initiative German Solidarity with Myanmar Democracy. That initiative was started immediately after the coup here in Germany by German and Myanmar activists. It launches demonstrations, petitions, campaigns, and has more than 3,200 followers on Facebook. So it's really has become a strong voice. Chan grew up in Yangon. She studied German and she worked as a translator and as a teacher, both in Yangon and Bangkok. And at Yangon University for foreign languages, she was a student leader and an activist. And since the coup has become a very important voice in explaining the developments in Myanmar to the German audience. Our other speaker is Han Htoo Khant Paing. He has been an election observer in Myanmar for the Carter Center. So he was observing the last elections, those which were used by the military as a pretext for the coup. And Han Htoo has a Bachelor of Business Administration from Yangon University of Economics, and he has a Master of Public Policy from Oxford University. He had various student union leadership roles and is still part of the University Students' Union Alumni Force. And he is now living in Berlin. He left Myanmar in April. And currently he's analyzing digital public sphere in Myanmar. So, for example, what people there are posting on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media. And he's analyzing it mostly in regard to disinformation campaigns and hate speech. We will start now our discussion. The discussion will have three parts. The main part, and the first one, is trying to analyze the current situation, the recent developments. The second is about international reactions. The third and final short view into the future. The first part will be about how's the situation today. As most of you might have heard, yesterday the American journalist Danny Fenster has been released from insane prison in Yangon. And as you might remember, even much more people, a few hundreds of political prisoners have been released in October by the junta. So I want to know, Han Htoo, what you think about these releases?
It is pretty hard for me to make a proper sense out of it. Danny Fenster is a journalist, American journalist working for the Frontier Myanmar, and before that he used to work with Myanmar Now. And Myanmar Now has been, after the coup, declared an illegal media by the junta, and Danny was arrested. Although he is not working anymore with Myanmar Now, the allegations against him include his connections and affiliations with Myanmar Now. So we all understood Danny's arrest as some sort of the junta leverage on the Western democracies and the international community, including even ASEAN. But he has just been sentenced to 11 years last week. But the thing is, he was now released, and we can safely say that it was a consequence of Bill Richardson's visit to Myanmar. Bill Richardson is a sort of a senior ambassador. He used to be a United Nations ambassador from the United States, and he came to Myanmar and talked with the junta leader May Aung Hlaing, and the observers and the democratic activists didn't see any fruitful consequence out of his trip. He himself admitted that he didn't have any legitimacy from the United States government and the people for his visit, but he at least hope for some humanitarian development, and this is clearly one of the consequences of his trip. And fitting this part into a bigger picture, I have to admit I'm still baffled by that move. Last week he just sentenced to 11 years imprisonment, and now he's released. And if it is to be understood as part of a deal, let's say between the United States or with the ASEAN or the Myanmar government, we have no idea what is the other part of the balance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we cannot say yet, but so far it looks as if nothing has changed except that he was released. So how would you describe the situation in your country at the moment?
The situation in my country is a sort of a political stalemate at the sort of political or national level, and constant fear and desperation on the individual level. You stay with constant fear and uncertainty almost all the time. The politics is not present 24 hours a day, but the constant is there. And let's talk about the stalemate. I used to I see Myanmar's political problem from this perspective. Let's suppose we have an opportunity window from the side of the opposition government, the National Unity Government, the NUG, and the other democratic actors. It used to be the opportunity window for them used to be the CDM movement. Now,
the CDM movement is the civil disobedience movement.
The civil disobedience movement, yeah. It is essentially the government employees not going to their work anymore, and the people declining to cooperate with the military government, for example, by not paying taxes.
So and general strike movement.
Yeah, it is sort of non-violent, and it is very inclusive, very widely participatory, and yeah, it used to be that opportunity window. Now it is, I think that framework is a little bit outdated. Now it is, Myanmar has a sort of descended into as constant sort of clashes, most of the time armed clashes between the democratic forces and the military. And now that opportunity window is less relevant, but still the one of the sources for the political stalemate is that the junta is until now is not able to consolidate its power, and it essentially comes from that CDM movement. People doesn't pay taxes, people doesn't recognize the rule of the military, and the government employees, they don't go to the work anymore. So it is one of the reasons. So the military cannot consolidate its power. Yeah.
But I understood you correctly when you said that the dynamics now is more on the armed struggle and less on the civil resistance. There is still important civil resistance, but the dynamic has shifted a bit. Is that right?
It is.
Okay. Nyein Chan, I want to know about coming back to this civil side. Most of us remember the pictures in summer when we saw people lining up for buying cylinders of oxygen and really having severe problems with the respiration of their COVID-19 affected people. So how did the coup affect the pandemic or the fight against the pandemic?
Yeah. So the first thing is you have to think about the situation where General May Online seized the power of the country. It was on the 1st of February, it was the time where the whole world is suffering from this COVID-19 pandemic. So this is the most inhumane act of craziness, I have to say. So the thing is, this question I was asked so many times when I talk about the coup situation in Myanmar here in Germany. So they keep asking me, so how are the numbers there? How are people going with COVID situation? And I have to say, in the very first period after the coup, let's say February, March, April, so you didn't hear anything about COVID situation there. You just saw the pictures of the glorious demonstrations of thousands of people. And later, let's say July, August, this was the very peak moment. This was the worst moment ever of COVID-19 pandemic situation in Myanmar. So people were suffering day by day. And the problem is the doctors who refused to work for the junta, and they came back to the society, or I say came back because if you join the civil disobedience movement in Myanmar because you don't want to serve the junta, because you don't want to serve the junta who sees the power of the country illegally, then you are criminal in the eyes of the military. So they have to hide, they have to leave, those civil servants have to leave their home, and they have to leave their family, they have to find their safe houses. Later, during this period, let's say July, August, and September, the worst moment of COVID-19 in Myanmar, they try to hurt the people. And also, it is really, I have to say, those words by Abraham Lincoln were really, really right at that time. Although he said it in another context. So, of the people, from the people, by the people, because the people are helping themselves, each other. So, and then the military junta, they really stopped those doctors, stop those civil servants who want to serve the people. And they arrested illegally the doctors and volunteers, and they put them into jail. And the people who need their oxygen cylinder, and they have to pay too much money. So the people who just who don't have any money, or the people who are living in a poor country, they don't have any infrastructure, and they just had to suffer. So nowadays, if you look at the news about Myanmar on international media, you won't see anymore, or just very few news about COVID situation in Myanmar.
Yeah, that's what I asked.
But it doesn't mean that COVID is over there. COVID is not over yet. But the problem is, I don't say that, not the problem. The point is, after the 7th of September, when the National Unity Government, the Vice President of the National Unity Government, declared the defense of the people, and the international media just follows the situation of those defense of the people, but not much about COVID situation there. So, and also the military junta is still holding this card of COVID to win the power again. It likes they imported, or they receive a donation in vaccination, and they say because they are the true government, they got the vaccination or something like that. The junta is trying to legitimate its power in any way, and they are ready to pay any cost. And it is also including vaccination and saving people's lives there. So, and of course, the international community wants to help Myanmar, and they will donate the vaccinations. But the junta is holding this card and saying, "Oh, they are recognizing us as government, so that's why they donate us the vaccines, and we will give the people if the people are not opposite to us." So this is the situation. Briefly.
So, do I understand correctly that if you want to get a vaccination, or if you want to get tested or treated, you somehow have to cooperate with the junta? That's the main avenue to get these treatments. Is that right?
So let us say the people who are joining the movement, or the people who are against the junta, they cannot go to the public healthcare service if apparently, because if they go, they will get arrested. So it means the junta is saying, just keep quiet yourself, just don't say anything about us, and you will get the vaccine. So this is very dirty deal.
Okay, so meaning people who are in the resistance movement cannot get vaccinated, cannot be maybe not tested, and treated only if they know the doctor personally, and the doctor is in the CDM and the general strike movement, correct?
Yeah, and I have to add some point. And the people, they are also, so the junta is holding this card of vaccination, but the people, this civil disobedient movement is not only about the civil servants, but also about the people. The people, they are saying it was really, and they got that bad dream, that nightmare of COVID-19 in the last 2 months. But they are saying really consciously, they say, no, we won't take any vaccine from that junta. Rather we will die from COVID or whatever, but we won't take vaccine from that junta. So the people, the will of the people is very strong to stay against the military junta.
Okay, Yadanar, Han Htoo mentioned already that the dynamic is now also strongly on the military side of the conflict. Before the coup, you had a performance in Yangon called Civil War. What did you have in mind when you had this performance, Civil War? And what we now have, is that a civil war? Is it something you had in mind? Or maybe you can tell us what kind of civil war you were talking then and whether you see it today as a civil war in your country.
In this piece, I was doing performance with my two other colleagues, Mai and Colette, and we found a collective named 3 AM, which means 3 artists from Myanmar. And we did this public performance piece in Yangon. And in this piece, we make body action, eating food together and fight each other suddenly. And also we using timer watch and playing alternate action of eat and fight. And also we consist of 8 major ethnic cuisines to represent our ethnic brother and sister. And finally, we end up with the fight and on the floor, all the scattering pieces of food and broken plates, which is exactly the situation of what's happening in Myanmar now. This is my opinion, and as a creating as an art piece. And
sorry to interrupt you. So what you had in mind then was the conflict between the Tatmadaw, the Myanmar army, and the ethnic minority, the armed groups of the ethnic minorities. That was what you were referring to as civil war.
Yes. This piece was exactly we created last year, and then we recreated also as the underground protest movement during the revolution. And like this piece, ethnicity in Myanmar are living on the same land, building relationship hardly for peace, but always have to end up with fight, especially with Burmese military. And Myanmar is the longest civil war since 1948, and it had never been stopped. And mostly happened in the ethnic region, as we all know. And this 2021 coup d'etat make it worse than ever, and that we can even compare with Myanmar situation could be like in Syria or Iran or Afghanistan. It could be anytime. And I think that what happened now in Myanmar, in my country, is civil war as well as civil outbreak, precisely for some part. And it's also increasing attack day by day between People Defense Force and Tatmadaw, and people living in the capital city are not safe anymore.
Okay, maybe to explain for the audience, People Defense Forces are armed militia groups set up by the population fighting the Tatmadaw. That's the name for the Myanmar armed forces. Han Htoo, what can you maybe elaborate a bit on this kind of civil war? How does this civil war look like? Who has the upper hand, or who is killing whom? And what is your analysis of this civil war?
So it is pretty difficult to sort of say who has the upper hand. The military clearly has more military power, better military power, manpower and technology and weaponry, of course. But what they are facing is like guerrilla warfare. It is not a full-blown war, but like the attacks everywhere and every now and then, but every day. So it is exactly what is happening in Myanmar. And the People Defense Force, the PDF, it was founded by the opposition government, the NUG, and it is not only the PDF who is fighting against the military. There are also other ethnic armed organizations which have been fighting the military for their autonomy and federal democracy for decades. And there are also other revolutionary armed forces which have been sprang in the Spring Revolution, which started in February. all of those are not necessarily under the control of the NUG. The NUG tries its best to sort of at least coordinate all the attacks and actions, the military actions, and also like try to sort of set norms and sort of regulations, sort of conduct of encounters, these sort of things. And it has a certain degree of success as the armed revolution the armed struggle. It is also having a certain degree of success. It is now the sort of in the first question I said that one of the reason the military's power is not consolidated yet in the country is because of the non-cooperation from the people. It is the non-violent movement, protest, and it is also supported by the armed struggle. Just because of the armed struggle, I believe the military rule hasn't been consolidated yet in the country, and I think it is pretty sort of early to have a say on what will happen next. But the best we can do is to sort of keep all of those military actions from the democratic actors and players within a framework of norms and regulations to reduce not to have sort of the civilian casualties and sort of collateral damages. Yeah.
Okay. Chan, I mean, we saw pictures the military burning down whole villages, small towns. When you look at the history of Myanmar, you realize that it's not the first time that people went underground. We had the protest movement in 1988, 89, and then when the coup in those days came, also young people went underground, joined the ethnic armed groups, but more or less got crushed or were not successful militarily. If you compare the situation 89 or after 89 and today, where you see differences, or is there a reason for optimism that maybe people this time are more successful?
I might say this is, if I say about the differences, there could be many differences, but I have to say, in my defense, I don't say it was worse and it was bad in the past, or it is now good because the Generation Z, our generation, is evolving. It's not about that, but let's say the communication and of course the digitalization. We are now living in the age of digitalization, and this helped us a lot. This helped us a lot to mobilize the demonstrations, mobilize the people's movement, and mobilize the armed struggle of the people, let's say. And then also this, we always say this 10 years, starting from 2010, and let's say 2021, 2020, this 10-year window, this period was so-called democratization. I'm saying yes, and now so-called democratization, but the Generation Z, which is now involving, intensively involving in the revolution, they got the chance to learn more about freedom and democracy and human rights, and also justice, and also what is the world. They can see, they can have the wider perspective about the whole world. So, and they know that which strategy could be then nice to organize the demonstration, to organize the armed struggle. But of course, we have to, you talk about the less, so 88, 89, and also the young people who joined the ethnic arms organization, and then later they didn't have success. And then later they also had to fight again, they fought against each other. It was in the past. But if a person, or if a person has a weapon in the hand, it's really, it is just the borderline between to be a person, to be a mankind, or to be a monster. It is really thin. If you have the weapon, it is really thin. So the conscious and also the belief to what they are fighting for what they are fighting. So this is the thing what bind the people together. And then also, of course, the military, the opposite side were, of course, they were trying to make this dirty business, like, oh, you have spy in your there and something like that, with informant, something the traditional way of the Burmese military. But the young people are now, they communicate very transparently, and they have their strategies, and also they don't and they understand human rights. What is human rights? And they always, I can see here also the check and balance between them. Also in the people defense forces, they say, people, hey guys, don't do that to women and children. Don't do that, and that. So they are keeping check and balance between them although they are in the armed struggle. So I might say this is the big difference between the past and now. And as I mentioned before, it's no offense to the past movement, but this is what I'm seeing in our generations. Yeah.
Okay, many thanks. Yadanar, let's come back to your art, and maybe Peter can now show 3 of your artworks. One is a picture of a wedding couple where the husband has a submachine gun. And to remember, this art was from before the coup. Then the next slide is you, the national flag, holding a pistol. And the last one is you in a kind of wedding dress with a lot of blood and pistols. So maybe you can briefly explain what you wanted to express with this art, and then how the reaction to this artwork has been. How did people react to it? Are they offended, or? And then if you see it from today's point of view, now when you have this civil war, how you see your art, and would you be able to have such kind of art today in Myanmar?
Obviously, it's impossible for today mean now. And even when I showed this art, it was in 2013, in the transition period before NLD government, and we were showing underground exhibition. And I remember at the New Zero Art Space. And in this piece, and I compare Myanmar democracy situation with and prepare or random marriage of young couples. And it's a piece that reflects tradition, culture, and feminism mixed with political aspect. And when I created this at that time, military government changed their uniform into civilian outfit. And USDP party was taken over Myanmar, promising fair and square election for next 10. And they also promised the democratic Myanmar, which power, but the power is absolute controlled by military.
USDP party was proxy party of the military, yeah? Former
yes.
party, and they called it democratization then.
Yes. Yeah, we in the now term we call it Green Party and Red Party, like with this color aspect, and in this series of picture, I would like to dictate that Myanmar democracy was never pure, and its path was always complicated. And our generation, my parent generation, we all were systematically degraded and controlled by the military. So it was always, and from 2011, also where I have started my contemporary art practice until 2016. And this is a general thing saying government rule. So he was a former general, but he wear the civilian like parliament uniform. And then in this picture also, there are five picture with this different max, and they manipulate people. And with this, the woman is as a representative is the situation of Myanmar, or and prepare like with this feminism, because we have the rule of this gender equality is also never equal in Myanmar. So like with this tradition and norm, and I would like to combine all of that. And the use of GAM is it in my aspect, like this weapon means a symbolic representation of fight, struggle, and power. Then I would like to show that we always have been this political fight in our heart. Like I said, in generation to generation, we always suffer. So, and then we were, even though they are in this period of 2011 till 2015 until NLD government was elected, and it was always we were being manipulated and governed. The censorship was never free in art, in film, and also this this is always we young people always had to fight for our own rights. So I would like to talk with that in my picture, in my performances, in my picture, with this meaning of how we struggle. And but I was never imagined until this point. This is the unbearable point where we reach today's situation, and most of our youngsters have to join the armed resistance, and including all and every sector, doctors, engineer, artists, worker, and they have to choose because of things are intolerable. And they shoot and kill people for asking their right. The military shoot and kill them, and we just ask for the democracy. And the soldier and police, they also bully peaceful civilian, and they always show their power with weapon and in the street every day. And when I was in Yangon in this 3 months during this revolution, there were never a day that peacefully sleep safe and sound, and gunshot and arrests happen everywhere. I hear them every day. And yeah, this is until this point is reached. And then yeah, it is like its situation is more complicated than we all expect now.
Yeah.
I mean, today's situation. Yeah.
Okay. Han Htoo, when we learned that Myanmar has never been peaceful since 1948. There have always been fights going on, especially in the areas of the ethnic minorities. Nevertheless, I think the very good reputation Aung San Suu Kyi had for many years was that she was promoting non-violence. Now she is in jail and shut up. She cannot talk. And now you have armed struggle. So has there been a discussion? You analyze the social media. So I'd be interested what you observed about the discourse of resistance. Before you had the non-violent way of the NLD and Aung San Suu Kyi, which was successful in part, but now is not successful anymore. And now people join the armed struggle. Maybe you can elaborate a bit on how is the discussion and what you find interesting about this discussion. Or was there no discussion? It was for sure for everybody that armed struggle is the only way. I mean, please give us some idea about it.
Right. There have been discussion on the armed struggle by the time the peaceful protest were started to be like crushed down brutally and fatally, and people died, and the number of peaceful protesters who died, just like they're just civilians, they are just like not fighting back, they were just shot dead on the street. The number of such people were rose to 300, 500, and 800. And there have been discussions through all those times, whether the armed struggle is first a rationally sort of permissible way to get out of this situation, or the other considerations also included, of course, the idealistic considerations and also moral considerations. But it has to be considered in the light of the non-violent way of conducting politics that Aung San Suu Kyi have been embraced throughout all those years. It was not without criticism. It was the coup was, in a sense, seen as a failure of that approach. For sure, there has been sort of success and advantages of that approach. I mean, most of the people were introduced to at least partial freedom and democracy. And I said most of the people, there are still millions of people who were just suffering like under the civilian government, who have been like brutally sort of treated by the military under those years. And as everybody know, there have been that Rohingya crisis, and there have been sort of negligence towards the ethnic people, and the disenfranchisement, and also the still made of the NCA, which is nationwide ceasefire agreement. It is a legal framework to bring peace to Myanmar and to stop, to cease 7 decades long civil war in Myanmar. So that non-violent approach hasn't always been without criticism. Also, it wasn't without any harm. There were millions of people who were disenfranchised, who were socially excluded and secluded, segregated, and also perpetrated by the military. Even if we think Rohingya as a separate matter, even if we take out that Rohingya population, we still have indigenous people, the other people, who are sort of artificially recognized by the former socialist government as indigenous people of Myanmar. So even those people have been suffering from military brutality. So there is, I just want to sort of bring up my personal story. 3-4 days before the coup, very shortly before the coup, there have been a very looming threat of coup in Myanmar, and I happened to talk with a friend of mine, and he asked me what's the possibility, and I said, no, there is literally no possibility. The military is just sort of playing fireworks, and the other thing I said was, maybe if there is one, it is just a sort of a result of elite sort of civilian politicians and the military politicians, maybe I will not take the street to risk my sort of my freedom, my convenience. I was wrong on both calculation. The coup happened, and I was on the street, and I was a bit sort of baffled by my inconsistency. Later on, I realized that maybe our goal is not to go back to that status quo before coup situation. We have to bring a genuine democracy and kick the military back to their barracks, and bring transitional justice to everyone. This is what we want. I thought before the coup, if the status quo was destroyed, I'm not like working hard to bring the status quo back, but we have to understand, we Myanmar people have to understand very clearly, and it is also very important for the international community to understand, to make any meaningful contributions within their institutional, geopolitical, and normative constraints to help Myanmar to understand that Myanmar people are fighting for a real federal democracy. They're not going back to that pre-coup political situation, and maybe in giving like some sort of thought to that approach, maybe sort of a latent or sort of raw attempt or to mediate between all parties. All parties include military, and like for example, the ASEAN 5-point consensus, they ask for the dialogue between the military and the opposition. At least now it is impossible. Maybe there will be a point where the opposition forces have a leverage to talk with Myanmar, the military, and the military have found some way to find their escape, but not now.
Yeah. Okay. I found your answer very interesting. Nevertheless, you have to keep your answers shorter, otherwise we are running out of time, which we are doing anyway. There's one question I want to ask Chan, and at the same time there is a reader who participant in the audience who had kind of same question. Is Chan still there? Because she's not on the screen anymore. Htoo, I don't understand.
I suppose Chen is having a technical difficulty.
Yes.
Maybe, she would be back very soon. Yeah.
That's a pity, because all the next questions would be I wanted to direct Chan, but because we now getting into the direction of the international, what can international audience, and what can we do here, and what should our governments do? And she is working on the international level strongly. Okay, then we switch to Yadanar, to the artists. You are now an artist in exile. What can artists do to highlight the situation in Myanmar? You did performances in Bavaria. How did people react to that? What can you do as an artist? Please unmute your. We cannot hear you.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's better, yeah.
So since the beginning of the protest, artists in Myanmar were very actively involved. They gather together in paint and performance in the roadside of Pansoden and raising funding for the CDM, Civil Disobedience Movement.
So we have to explain Pansoden as a street in
yes.
There are many galleries, yeah? So
yeah, in Gallery Street in Myanmar, and it's also in the downtown, and also in the social media platform. The artist, cartoonist, writer, they inspire as and motivate us to be inside to get international awareness in the social media platform. And they give a lot of creative impulse with the revolution. And but sadly, the situation of artists in Myanmar were not good. It was the wars, like in May, the poet Khati, he was arrested at night, and next day the dead body is delivered to his family, and because of he writing a poem. So it is, so mostly the artists who are creating against the military junta, they are in a death threat, and also if they are protests in the street, they could be in the jail and torture. So yes, and for people who, especially my colleague artists who are inside the country and resisting the coup, resisting the dictator, they are really very courageous. And all of my artwork that I do here in Germany, my performers are dedicated to them and all the artists who sacrifice their life for creating art. Because of creating art, they were in the jail or they were killed by the military. And then most of my performers are dedicated to them. And also I was informed about it whenever I have chance to join the festival or event in the Germany, and I am explain that I'm from Myanmar and something happening in Myanmar, and like this I always explain. But the thing is, it is most of the people, I mean like normal people, normal folk, they don't know where Myanmar is. And it is, I have to explain from the beginning where is Myanmar, is in between Thailand or is near in Southeast Asia, these things. So it is also because of its lack of international media talk about Myanmar, and also we were isolated for so long time. And when I do performance or when I talk about this revolution with art or in any people are really hard to geographically locate where Myanmar is or what is Myanmar look like. And mostly people engaged are also, they have been at least once as a tourist, they've been to Myanmar. Then they are engaged in this activity, or, you know, like they came to my they accept my invitation, or even they buy my art for the fundraising purpose, this thing like this. Because I was doing exhibition for Myanmar artists in last July in Gothenburg, and it was harder than I expected. The engagement by the public and also you know, the interest and everything is really quite hard. And but it is everybody who have their own reason, and the thing is we don't stop making this awareness. And as an artist, and also there are many artists leave the country because of so many reasons, and then we also have a meeting together and try to support each other and doing more exhibition which talk about Myanmar revolution, and also to have a fundraising activity, and to find the platform to speak out or to show what is happening in my country.
Okay, thanks. Keep it shorter, please, your answer.
Okay.
So welcome back, Chan. There are now a couple of questions I wanted to ask you. One, we learned about that these different People's Defense Forces, they are not really under the NUG, under the shadow government, but they are loosely cooperating. So there's a question whether you see a danger of balkanization. That would be my question. And then we have a viewer, Mark Bühnemann, who has more or less the same question, but asking it differently. So he said, do you see increased coherence between the splintered ethnic armies as they are now fighting a common enemy? Do you think that the struggle now has the chance to unite the different ethnicities? And do you think that the national unity government has the capability to do this in the future? So on the one hand, the danger of falling apart of the country, the other, is this now a chance to bring them all together? How you see it?
So let's say the first one is, I'm so sorry for the technical issues, but the thing is, balkanization is, of course, the big question also in our mind, because I've already mentioned that if people are having weapon in their hands and they are now fighting against the common enemy, but when the common enemy is gone, what will happen next? Will they do that? Will they will they fight against each other, or will they unite? Will they be united? So this is also the question, and also it depends. I might say, maybe I am very optimistic, but not only that, but also the thing is the intention. For what the people are fighting, for what those armed force, people defense forces, and also ethnic revolutionary organizations, or other way ethnic armed organizations, for what they are fighting. So they are fighting to get back the fundamental rights of the people. They are fighting for federal democracy, and they have this common goal. So a lot of international audience, or let's say international community, they thought, sometimes they thought, oh, Myanmar, the people are now being militant and something like that. Yeah, but the people, the young people who are now having guns in their hands, they are holding guns in their hands not because they are militant, but because they want to fight for their fundamental rights. And this is a very basic thing. And also this is here the capacity of NUG, and not only NUG, but also this NUCC, National Unity Consultative Committee. And this is also the capacity of this committee, because this committee is working together with all of the stakeholders to integrate the societies again, and also the strategies, how they can strategies about the federal constitution. And yeah, this is and also the promises they are doing, the political promises they are doing with the ethnic people, because it is very important. This is also in Myanmar history, it's very important. They say, let's fight against our common enemy, and then we will talk later. No, in this revolution, this strategy won't work. So they are now doing, we will fight against the common enemy, and also parallel, we will talk. We are talking each other, and we are developing the strategy. So let's say this balkanization could be a question, but for me, frankly, I say I don't see now. For me now, I mean, during this today, till today, I don't see this as a big danger. Yeah.
Okay, we are running out of time, so we want to touch the second part briefly, at least the international level. So that's also to turn the question, what you expect from the international community. I mean, so far no government has recognized the shadow government, and let's keep it precise. What should the forthcoming German government do towards?
Okay, I'll just do that very quickly. So you have pointed out no governments, or just say Western governments, because we are now in Germany. So no Western governments that universally recognize NUG, but we also had those progresses. So on 5th October 2021, the French Senate passed a resolution to formally recognize the NUG, National Unity Government, and later, then 2 days later, the European Parliament passed also a resolution to that recognize the CRPH, the committee representing Bidangzhu and NUG as the only legitimate representatives of Myanmar. But the thing is, to recognize the international community is also concerning that if they recognize NUG as a legal legitimate government, how they can do work there in Myanmar. because possibly shutting them out of any opportunity to influence the situation on the ground, or this is also the worry of international community. Yes, I understand. And also the international community would like to have the channel to have dialogue with the military and also with the NUG and also with the military. But I have to say the international community is also trying to give dialogue and also to create platform on which both sides can sit, but we cannot do any dialogue with the military guy who are pointing guns at us. And this is the first one. The second one is, okay, what will be the result of those dialogues, which will be held or which will be moderated by the international community? As Han Htoo mentioned before, the people of Myanmar don't want to go back to a status quo in 2010. So just to say, okay, just let's restore back the democracy. Let's restore the democracy in Myanmar. We didn't have any democracy also in the past. So the international community should understand that. Okay, yes, now I will move to the upcoming German government. And so the first thing is, please keep in mind, please keep talking with the National Unity Government, and please be informed what they are doing. And also not only about that, but also please do, if you have already strategy and if you are really, love democracy, if you want to consolidate democracy, please help the people now. Now is the time. Not to say, okay, maybe we can have talk with the military guy. Those attempts have been failed for a long time. So if those attempts have been successful, we don't have any civil war anymore. Now we don't have civil war and no civil war anymore. But this is already failed because the military in Myanmar is not dialogue friendly. I can say that as a Burmese person. And the secondly, please help the people who have to leave the country. This is in German we say Asylkontingent. So the people who are seeking asylum, please help people. Please welcome the people whose life were threatened just because they want to fight back their fundamental rights. And the third thing is the diplomatic way. Of course, those are the best thing, but please see the real situation, talk with the people also on the ground, what people of Myanmar really needs. Please don't ignore Myanmar just because geographically we are just far away. But Myanmar's course is also the world course, because I say if the military coup in Myanmar is successful, could be successful, then the other military dictatorships will come, and the wave of big migration and the wave of revolution and the wave of armed struggle will come again in the world history. So please help us. And now.
Okay, our time is over. I still have two questions, very short. One to Chan again, and there's also the question of Detlef Neufert. I, of course, was also going to ask a question. For a very short answer, what should German people do? What can they help? So the question before was about the government, but now the audience, the readers of our newspaper, other people, brief answer, please. What should or what best way to help Myanmar or German people?
Okay, we already mentioned most of the word. This is the civil disobedience movement. So the civil servants, the thousands of civil servants are still resisting, although they are in very existential crisis. They have to struggle very too hard. So please help those civil servants who are fighting against the military junta there in Myanmar. So let's say the quick answer is money. Please help us.
Money, where
donate money to the civil disobedience movement. This is we can have. We can also
your organization here in Germany, or
my organization in Germany share always the platforms where you can donate money. And secondly, the people in Germany, you can do. please sign the petitions. My organization, German Solidarity with Myanmar Democracy, is sharing the petitions. The most important thing is not only the armed struggle, not only the civil disobedience movement, but also to weaken the military junta. We also have to cut the money which is flowing to junta directly. So the tribunal like this, international big concern, the big companies, they are still paying tax to the junta. To stop that, please sign the petitions. This is also my appeal.
We will show the link of the website of your organization at the end. And now, from everybody, one brief statement: Myanmar in 5 years. Han Htoo, one sentence. How will Myanmar look in 5 years? What do you think?
I have no idea. I'm not in a position to. I'm not informed to answer that questions. I just hope for the best and do for the best.
Okay,
yeah.
That's an honest answer. Yadanar.
I also can't tell, but I hope that revolution is over. We all are win, and things change into ways better than current situation now.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, we must carry on. All of us have to walk and hope that war is standing with us, Myanmar people. That's my answer.
Thanks. Now, Chan, you have the final word.
Let me say, I don't have, I cannot also give some expectations, but I can express my wish. In 5 years, I would like to go back to my home together with my fellow activists, and let's see what is happening there.
Okay, many thanks. That was our discussion tonight. I thank the audience for watching, and I thank my colleagues at TATS who helped me with this, Peter for the technical side, also our marketing department. And finally, you will soon see a slide with a few websites. So you see Yadanar's website, so you can watch her art. You see the website of the organization of Chan. You see the Hansen's Asientalk. Also, I want to announce the next taztalk, which is again Hansen's Asientalk on Thursday about this human rights and labor rights and environmental standard supply chain, and especially with regard to Xinjiang and China. So we discuss that on Thursday, so in 2 days, again at 7 p.m. And again, please donate some money, not only to Myanmar, but also that we can have these kinds of talks. We had more than 200 TATS talks already. So it's good, I think, to continue these kinds of discussions. So thanks again. Thanks for all participants for your answers and sharing your views. I think we will sooner or later continue that, but for today, I think it's enough. And so good evening to all of you. Many thanks.
Thank you so much, Sven.
Bye-bye.